Good afternoon, everybody. Clinton here with Oval Window Racing. We're back to grease pit. I got the short block together, as you've seen in the previous video. Well, today we're going to concentrate on the long block, and that's putting the cylinders and the head on. I don't know how much of the whole process I'm going to show you, because I've probably already showed some of it, putting this together for trial fitting purposes and stuff. It's pretty much going to be the same thing, but we're going to be using silicone and sealant this time. Keep things dry and clean and oil-free. Well, we hope it's going to be oil-free, but like I said earlier, they always seem to want to leave their mark. Any good Volkswagen does. But yeah, let's get to it, and I'll show you what silicones I'm going to be using. Today, I'm put up the Yamabond and traded it in for Ultra Copper. I like to run this in between the cylinders and the shims and the case. Then I'll be also going back to the Ultra Black. I think I got a little bit more life out of this old tube. But this, well, I'll do the same thing I did with the case nuts. When I put the case halves together, I'll put a little bit on underneath some of the washers on the heads, just to kind of hopefully keep things oil-free. So let's find some pistons and cylinders. All right, here we got the cylinder number 1. We'll double check. Looks like I got it down to using one shim. Oh, no, 2 shims. There's one hiding here. I thought I had 2 shims on there. Wrist pin, and don't forget the wrist pin buttons. Double check, make sure we got cylinder number 1. We'll open up in there and take a look. That says number 1, and we got 1 notch there. So the process right now is just siliconing things up. Guy at the parts store years ago gave me this little twist turn guide. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, but yeah, it comes in pretty handy. And let's clean the point off. The idea is just to put a little thin coat here, because we're going to be putting them I can't talk and concentrate at the same time. We're going to be putting them in between each shim too. That's the tricky part. And I think I liked using this one, so we're going to position the cylinder like it goes on the engine. So take a look at the engine here, and it's going to go on the engine this way. So the notches will be up. So I'm going to take my shim. This is going to be the first one I'll put down. Make sure it fits in here, because I told you in the previous video it only fits one way. Only fits one way. I'm going to come over here. So this is the top. We want that to go on the top. Alright, and a little more silicone. Alright, top's right there. Stuff gets everywhere sometimes. Then, shim number 2. This is the one that's going to be going up against the case. I picked this one, it's nice and flat, but top. And top. Line the head stud holes up. And more silicone. Now I'll put this on the engine without making too much of a mess. First thing I'm going to do is, we got to rotate this up. I like to have this up as high as I can. And this one's not as tricky. when putting these bushings in, because I can put it in on each side. You just got to remember to put them in. And hopefully the silicone holds those wrist pins up. Wrist pins. Hopefully the silicone holds the shims up. Wrist pins. And we're playing with the wrist pin. Okay, push that all the way in. Now let's go get the wrist pin bushings. Here they are. Yep, it's gonna be a bugger. There we go. Make sure that side's in. Slide the cylinder down over them, and then we can slowly rotate the engine down carefully. Push that down. Nice. Rotate the engine up. And earlier I pre-lubed these top of the rods there where the wrist pins go, the rod bushings. On to cylinder number 2. Cylinder number 2 is going to be a little more tricky getting the wrist pin bushings in. You just got to remember to put the first one in before you hang the piston and cylinder. And then you can put the second one on afterwards. Alright, find the top of the piston. It's going to go that way. Grab the shim. Come over here. Line her up. Okay, top. Alright, top of the piston, shim, line her up, top. Alright, now, like I said, this is going to be the inside of the cylinder. It's going to go up against cylinder number 1. So that's where we're going to have to put the wrist pin bushing, and that's where it gets tricky. Sometimes if you shove the piston down just a little, it won't come out. Because the last thing you want to do is try to be fishing that out of the short block. Believe me. Ask me how I know. Now, kind of the same process. Just a little harder to hang the piston because it's harder to feel where the wrist pin's at. But it's just kind of a feeling game. Go home. There we are. Now I'll put my finger in here just to help hold that other bushing in. Sometimes those wrist pins will want to go through there and knock it out. Grab the other one and install. There we go. It's being a little stubborn. I'm stuck on a head stud. Go home. Slide on down in there. There we are. Nice. Now grab yourself a rag, and sometimes you get a little bit of silicone on the head studs, sometimes you don't. Alright guys, don't forget to put your cooling tins on. Yeah, these are chrome. They'll make the engine go a lot faster. Let's let's not beat Jeremy up too much over these guys, but they were a swap meet fine for like $5 or something. Just make sure they're clipped up in there, and then let's get the head ready. Okay, now the next step is the fun game. Gotta put the head on, but we also have the push rod tubes to worry about. In the previous video when I did this assembly, I didn't do the push rod tubes because the engine was coming apart again, so there was no need to do it. But now I'm going to show you how I like to do it. So follow along. Alright, first you got to grab your cylinder head, grab your ultra black silicone underneath these 4 washers here. Don't take a whole lot, just enough to coat the aluminum a little bit. Now, there's no real reason to do the top 4 because they're in the open air. They're not attached to, they're not getting hit by any oil. But inside here, there's a big oil bath that goes on. Helps lubricate the rocker arms and and the springs. Helps lubricate the rocker arms and the springs. So we just want to make sure that the oil stays in the head and doesn't drip out through the push rod tubes. But we can take this guy over here now. Slowly set him down here. Getting all 8 of these guys lined up is tricky. I'm missing a couple. There they are. Now I also like to put just a little bit of this black silicone on the O-rings here for the push rod tubes. I used to do the oil trick where you put a little bit of oil so they can help them find their way home, but they always seem to leak. But ever since I started doing this technique, it helps stay a little drier. And then the other trick I've learned throughout the years is, might be hard to see on camera here, but there's actually a seam on these push rod tubes. You want to get the seam up, not down. I've never had any leak out of the seam. I pretty much use new ones every build. And normally stainless steel. These are a windage tube one, and I never had any leak. But they say sometimes there may be a little pitting in here. Maybe the weld or however they make these things didn't seal properly. But yeah, you don't want the oil to leak all over the place. So if it's up, it's not going to leak. Unless the tube gets completely full, then it may leak. But yeah, just a thin little coat. I'm only going to do 4 right now. This also helps them stick in the place a little bit better. Now here's where the games begin. Trying to get these things in here without dropping them all over the floor. Just kind of go one at a time. Sometimes if you leave one high like this, it's easier to get the other ones in. Just make sure they're not going to fall out. And see if that's going to hold it high enough. There we go, I've got them in there. Now it's time to start tightening some nuts down. I did the same trick I did with the the case nuts, the main case nuts. I put a little bit of oil on the threads and on top of the washers, just for torque reasons. But the first step's going to be just lightly tightening them down here with this wrench. So they're hand tight. Following the torque specs or torque pattern. We did wind up going with brand new chromoly head studs. These were just a little longer than the original stock studs. All right, now for the torque wrench. All right, now I got it half torqued down. I got one more step to do, and that'll be the final torque. But before I do that, I want to show you guys another little trick. Sometimes your push rod tubes may not want to be centered in here, or sometimes they get a lip where they lip over from when they make them in the process. And with high ratio rockers, sometimes they have a tendency to want to rub on the push rods. But I like to take this wrench. This is just my Craftsman's wrench. I've had this thing since I was a kid. Well, not this exact same one. I think I traded it in twice because I broke them. But it's the same style. It's got a nice rounded end on here. And I usually just like to stick them in here and just kind of wiggle these around a little bit. Get them centered. Make sure you get the whole ring seated good. And kind of undo that, unroll that lip a little bit in there. All right, now let's get the final torque down. This will be pattern number 2. All right, let's do a little check. That one tighten down a little more. More time. All right, that's good. All right, now since we trial fitted everything should be good, but we're still going to double check. We'll rotate it around a few times. And we'll check the compression. Yeah, nice. Good. On to the other side. All right, guys, got the Longblock all together. Grease pit has never looked better. Take a good look at them here. Pretty, 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 pretty. Now, next step's going to be just putting the small stuff on, like the oil sump and the oil pump. Before I put the oil sump on, I got to put the little oil springs in there, the oil relief springs. And the heads need to be, the rockers need to go on the heads with push rods, and then the valve covers, and then it won't be long, we'll be able to send Grease Pit home, where he's going to go live in a 1969 Baja Bug. Excuse me there. Need to get some water. Yeah, he's going to go home and live in a 1969 Baja Bug, I believe. Hopefully we'll get the chance to see the first fire up. If not, maybe we'll get to see some tuning and see how he performs in the car. Jeremy's plans are to be probably driving the thing around and taking it up to Silver Lake and stuff. But yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully we can talk Jeremy into getting some video footage of that. But yeah, if you guys like what I'm doing here, please subscribe and hit the notification button. Hit the thumbs up and leave a comment. It'd be nice to hear from you guys. Until then, stay safe, keep the flat side down and the shiny side up. Adios.